A podcast. What is the word?
A podcast by Kalugo.
A podcast. No. By Kalugo.
Yeah. Hi, I'm Christy, your host for Today We Tried, a parenting podcast from Kalugo. I'm so excited to have you here. This season has been all about the fourth trimester, and this episode is one I've been looking forward to. We're talking all things doula with Lori Bregman, a celebrity doula who has attended over 1,200 births. If you've listened along this season, you know I wish I'd worked with a doula, and I think that everyone should have access to the support and education they provide. In this episode, you'll get all of your questions about doulas answered by an expert. Lori shares how she works with clients to set a birth intention and process their births, and lots more. She also gives advice on finding the right doula that I honestly think applies to all decisions ever. And as someone who has a lot of trouble making decisions, I'm going to implement it in my everyday life. Plus, listen to the end to get a discount code to try Lori's new line of superfood supplements, Seedlyfe. Let's jump in. My guest today is celebrity doula Lori Bregman. She brings her unique blend of healing, spirituality, nutrition, and wellness to Seedlyfe, where she empowers women to find their voice in pregnancy and create a solid, healthy foundation. The author of The Mindful Mom to Be, The Doula Deck, and Mama Stay, Lori works with women throughout all stages of their personal transformation, from fertility through pregnancy into motherhood and beyond. Lori has worked with some very famous mamas, including Kate Hudson, Anne Hathaway, and Kelly Rowland, to name a few. Lori, I'm so excited to have you here. How are you?
Great. I'm so happy to be here. Thanks for having me.
Of course. And, you know, Kate Hudson used our carrier, which is like a very exciting moment for us at Kalugo. So
I love it.
Love to hear that you worked with her. So let's start like very much at the beginning with the basics. Can you tell me, what is a doula? What role do they play? And how should people be thinking about that?
Doulas have become a lot more popular lately. It's women. There's actually some men now that are becoming doulas, but it's mostly women supporting other women through pregnancy, childbirth, and afterwards. It's just having like a ton of support. We educate, we advocate, we support your mind, body, spirit. There are so many different ways that doulas work. So there's a doula out there for everybody. I take people through fertility, pregnancy, birth, into motherhood. So I like to do the whole journey. So blending in fertility coaching, pregnancy coaching, birth, and then postpartum support. There's all different ways to do it, but how doulas started, we've been around forever. But as time, it used to be the mother that supported the woman or the sisters or the women of the tribe. And now people are so spread out, and, women are working later in life, and it's not so easy to get there to support. And now even with COVID, worse. So
yeah, I did not have a doula with my pregnancies and births, but I really wish that I did. And it's something I feel like I knew more about even going into, so my youngest is now like 1.5 years. So my last pregnancy, I feel like I was more aware of doulas and the support they can provide, but it was also during COVID. So it felt like at my hospital, you could only have one support person there with you. But I do remember like being in the hospital bed, you kind of think maybe the nurses are amazing, but they're seeing a lot of different patients. So they're kind of like cycling in and out. And I remember just sitting in the bed being like, I wish someone was here who could just be like telling me what to do right now, just who has been there. I mean, how many births have you roughly been at?
Somewhere around like 1,200.
I mean, that's just an incredible wealth of knowledge that you have, and that doulas have, who you've seen everything, and you can just reassure and coach. I mean, it's just such an amazing resource.
No, and like exactly what you just said. And, too, during the pandemic, I was working virtually, and I've continued to do so with people all over the world. So I have clients right now in Austin, London, like I worked with people in Russia, because they just needed that advocacy and that support and that person. And I'm friends with so many of the labor and delivery nurses, and they were so bummed out when us doulas weren't allowed in because they're so short-staffed and overworked, and they just couldn't give the people the attention, the emotional, physical support, spiritual support, like that they needed during birth. They were just coming in and doing all the medical stuff they needed to do. But we work in tandem with nurses and everything. And we're the familiar face that you have worked through your pregnancy that really knows you, because the way you do birth is the way you do life. And so your doula knows you, which, the nurses, they don't know you.
Right. Well, so let's talk about, so if you want to find a doula, and I think this, I'm sure like so many of these relationships, it needs to be a good fit on both sides. As the parent and as the doula, that you're going to feel like, you'll work together well. What's some advice as you're trying to find the right doula for you, of maybe questions to ask or things to look out for in that process?
I would probably ask your care provider, first of all, if they know of any doulas they like, because I think working in harmony and working as a team is really important. I'd also ask your friends. It seems like I get so many referrals. Like I work with one friend, I end up doing that whole group of people, and like attracts like. So, one way to find doulas is really just to start asking around, ask your network, maybe if in the wellness space too, like first your friends, obviously, then maybe your care provider. If you do yoga, your prenatal yoga teacher would know, or your massage person or chiropractic. So ask like that. I really find that people really just you either resonate with somebody or you don't. You can ask them what their philosophy is. How many births have they attended? Have they ever worked with your care provider? Have they ever worked with the place that you're birthing? Let them know your birth intentions and kind of feel them out and see if they're supportive or not. My philosophy is very, I'll educate you and then I support you in your choices without judgment or opinion, because what might work for me might not work for you. And also the one thing I have seen with all the births I've done is that no two births are ever the same. No two couples, no two women, babies, experiences have ever been the same. So, and also, how do you feel around this person? How do you feel when you talk to them? Do you feel like, oh, I can relax with them? I feel supported. I feel really good, enthusiastic. Like, do I feel like enthusiastic and excited about my birth? Or do I feel like judged or, like ick? And I think that's really to use that internal discernment, that motherly instinct that we all have, to really pick and choose your doula, but also your care provider and your place of birth. I think it's so important to really sit with that.
Well, it's such great advice. And I think, much quicker, your body knows, like that feeling, like whether or not you resonate. Yeah. Do you feel nervous to share your birth intentions, or you feel like supported as you share them, like they're going to be on the same page and advocating for you in that moment? That's such good advice. That's such good life advice generally.
I know, like
who to surround yourself with.
Yes. I mean, and your birth, to me, I mean, we think about women that spend thousands on their wedding, and the wedding stays with, you get some really pretty pictures and you have a memory, but your birth will stay with you for the rest of your life, and it will imprint your child. And it is so important who you choose as your care provider and to surround yourself with during birth, because it really has a lasting impact on all of your lives.
So let's turn to the birth. I know you said maybe 1,200 births you've been a part of. I'm assuming most of those are in a hospital setting. Is that right?
Yeah. Hospital, home births. I do it all.
Do it all, I'm sure. So could you share some of your top tips for preparing for birth, and maybe preparing for a hospital birth in particular?
Yeah. My first thing would be picking your care provider and team wisely. It's really important, because a lot of my clients, their intention is to have an unmedicated birth, and their care provider might want to be very big in induction or something. And there's a lot of fear mongering that go on. And so to pick a supportive birth team that supports your birth intention. And I use the word intention because my plan is this. It's too set in stone. And as we know, if anything, birth is very unknown and unpredictable. but I like the word intention, because this is what I'm intending for. So to pick your care provider wisely is really important, but also to really sit and figure out your birth intention, because you can't put together a team unless you know what your intentions are. So that's really important. The other thing is education. Knowledge is power. Like I said to you, your birth's going to stay with you for the rest of your life and really imprint your child. And I think to go into this blindly and putting your health and your baby's well-being into the hands of someone else, it's not very empowering. You have a lot of choice. You have a lot of options in birth. A lot of doctors right now since COVID, great doctors, and I work with a ton of doctors. So it's not like I'm anti-doctor. I want to just stress that right now, but they are burnt out from COVID. And they found a real convenient way to do things by manually taking over your birth with induction and all these unnecessary things that have caused a lot more birth trauma that I've ever seen in my practice of 23 years.
It sounds like through education to know even what your options are, because I feel like I've given birth 3 times now and I probably don't even know what all my options are. But I remember the first time around with my twins, because I was twins and I was high risk, it was like very there were lots of interventions. I ended up being able to avoid a C-section, but all through my pregnancy, I was just continually asked to just like opt into a C-section, even though, both babies were head down and like everything seemed good. But I remember there was a midwife on call who was heading out, but she was like, you don't have to put on the hospital gown. If you want to stay in your clothes, just say no thank you, as people are going to keep coming and pressing. And I just remember in that moment that felt so empowering to me to just like stay in my clothes while there wasn't any need. So small things like that, and even knowing you can question things, can be really powerful. When you're working with your clients to set their birth intentions, like how do you start that conversation of what they should even be thinking about as like what's possible?
I start off by letting them know how it's going to stay with you for the rest of your life, and you have so many choices. And I start really talking. A lot of my work is done before the birth. Mm-hmm. When I work with people, I am so big on the education. And in fact, it's what I'm going to be moving more into in my career, because I see how important the education is. I do a ton of birth prep sessions with my clients. So I do about 5 minimum. If they need more, I give them more, but we work really on it. I also give them my 12-week Mindful Mom to Be virtual group coaching program, which is you come out of there and you're like, whoa, these women come out and they're like, I know so much. Look, the fact that you actually knew you could have a vaginal twin birth because you saw what they were doing to you at the hospital. And a lot of people, it blows my mind that actually women don't even realize they can do a vaginal twin birth. I have clients that are pregnant and they're like, yeah, I'm just gonna have a C-section. I'm having twins. And I'm like, you actually can have a vaginal birth. And they're like, I can. My doctor never brought that up, because it's convenient and it's easier for them. And the hospital gown thing, yeah. Why? Birth is the most natural, normal thing you can do, whether you get an epidural or not. It doesn't matter. It is not a medical emergency, or sometimes it can be, obviously, but it is something that women are made to do. And when you wear that hospital gown, you feel like you're in there because you're sick. So I always suggest my clients wear their own clothing, and it just makes you feel a little bit more human.
How do you talk with partners if the birthing person has a partner? What have you seen can be really impactful in terms of their role in the birth and kind of supporting, because you're there as a doula, as an advocate? What are some best practices you've seen from partners too to help make this a positive experience for everyone?
I love working with partners. I mean, I always work with the partners, and I always say that I'm going to be holding space for both of them, and the partner and I will hold space for the birthing mama together. I always encourage them and talk to them. I talked about the hormones of labor and how they are just by their love and their support and their connection will release all this good oxytocin, which will bring on contractions, which will help the labor flow, which will like help everything just work better. And when they look back on that day, they'll look back and be like, God, we're so connected and present. We brought our baby into the world with so much love and joy. And when they do that, it's like all those endorphins and those good hormones of oxytocin are released. So it helps the baby, it helps the mama, it helps everybody. Doulas will never get in the way of a laboring couple. If anything, we try to bring them together because we know about the hormones that are being released and how important it is that they're connected. I always assure them of that. Sometimes my role is to come over with a cold towel and just be like, here, why don't you put this on her head, or hand them the water bottle to give to her, or sometimes give them a break, or I'm squeezing the hips and they're holding the hands, something like that. I always say that I might know birth, but they know their partner better than anybody in that room. And the way that your partner does life is the way that she's going to do birth. So when she's upset or she feels afraid, you know exactly what to say to her. And I encourage them to do that. And then they're like, oh, I could do that. And so it kind of like their whole body just relaxes, which is so great to see.
That's so beautiful. And I think that's such a good point as you're preparing for birth. The way you do life is the way you do birth. That's beautiful. So it doesn't have to be some foreign thing. It's like, yes, this is a new set of circumstances, but you are yourself in that moment. You are the couple in that moment, and you can continue to be and support each other in the same ways you have leading up to that time.
And I always feel that the baby, it's like, what kind of highway do you want to bring the baby into the world in? Like, do you want to bring it in like fear and chaos and all, or do we want to like pave the way with love and connection and peace and joy? And usually it's everybody's like, yeah, sign me up for the peace and joy and love. So I hold space for that. That's my thing and then I can maybe advocate for them, or I can navigate that environment a little bit for them so they can just be in that space together.
Thinking as someone who, my second and third births were probably more on the chaotic side than on the like joyous highway side. So when you work with couples and maybe if something didn't go exactly as planned in the birth, or there was some change and the intentions weren't able to be fulfilled, as you're working with them to kind of process that in the early postpartum period, what have you found to be helpful to think about as you're kind of maybe looking back on a birth that didn't go exactly as planned?
I get them talking.
Mm-hmm.
I get them talking and I get them expressing, and I really like let it come out and acknowledge that it was traumatic. That was a lot. And just sometimes that letting them know that I understand why you feel this way. And then we kind of talk about it. And then I might add some like I do spiritual coaching. So I might add some spiritual views to the situation if it's appropriate. I kind of have to feel it out, kind of to see where the person's at and what I can say. So it really is an individual thing on how I deal with that. But a lot of it is talking and listening and emphasizing a little bit, being a little bit empathetic. And
yeah, acknowledging that, because I think so often women are just told, as long as they have a quote unquote healthy baby or nothing, they're just told to be happy for that and not given space to process what they just went through. So I think creating that space, I think it's the biggest gift to listen to somebody else's birth story. You need to kind of talk through it to process it.
And I always invite them to write their birth story. I think it's really important. I do a birth processing session with my clients, even if it was the most magical, beautiful birth, because where it's kind of cool, they'll say their part, the partner will say their part, I'll say what I felt. And it's like amazing how the three of us can have completely different stories.
Oh, wow. Yeah, that's amazing.
Yeah. Or have different views as all those different stories. And I'm sure you hear a lot of birth stories, as I do, and see a lot of births. No two have ever been the same. I mean, and that's something too, I think if I had to say something to somebody who was pregnant listening, they're going to hear a lot of birth stories and just notice how different they all are. And that theirs will be too.
I've also found, as I look back at my different births, that story can also change, or like what you emphasize in your mind is more or less important, can change over time too. So if you have control too over that narrative as well, it's not just something that happened to you. Like you can pick out parts that were great and parts that were maybe not as great. All of that can be true at the same time.
And isn't that life?
Yes, exactly.
I mean, life's not always great, and life can be hard, and life can be beautiful. And that's part of life. There is the light and dark in everything, right?
Mm-hmm.
We do.
So I would love to hear more about Seedlyfe and what you're doing there. Can we start with what inspired you to start Seedlyfe?
Yes. So Seedlyfe is it's my product line. It's superfood smoothie blends and supplements for all stages of womanhood. We also just came out with a revolutionary prenatal vitamin that is,
wow.
It's a powder. It's amazing. It's so great. I was seeing a lot of my clients were having a really hard time getting down the pills.
Mm-hmm. They're humongous. So powder sounds great. So you said they're in powder form?
It's powder. So you mix it with water. So
amazing.
The reason we came up with that was 57% of people have a hard time taking pills. And then the other thing is, so we added the top ingredients, cutting edge ingredients right now that a woman needs, that if you had it, you would have to take 8 pills to get all the ingredients in powder. So we could stick a lot more in there. And then we also added electrolytes because 40% of women are dehydrated during pregnancy. And it's really important to stay hydrated. I had we just had a heat wave in LA. A couple of my nurse friends told me that the hospitals were packed from pregnant women being dehydrated and going into like preterm labor, like having contractions. So it's really important to stay hydrated. So we added electrolytes, food-based electrolytes that are amazing. We also added ginger and lemon to help combat morning sickness. So it's a drink that you drink and you add it in a water bottle and you get all your vitamins in. And I drink it even though I'm not pregnant because it's so freaking good. We have superfood smoothies blends. We have a fertility blend, male and female. We have a pregnancy blend, a new mom blend for healing and breastfeeding. We have a vitality blend, a kids blend, PMS blend. And they're amazing. I just had my vitality blend this morning. I started making it like them for myself because I was like, I want to keep my hormones good. And I started with this fertility one. And then I had a couple of my clients that were pregnant and I bought all the ingredients. I used to bring it over to them in mason jars, but it was costing me like literally like $300.
I'm sure those, with all the different supplements and things, I'm sure it was wild.
It was so much that I was like, screw it. So I created this like recipe and I started giving everybody the recipe. And one of my celebrity clients, she drank it for a couple months, like religiously. And then on her honeymoon, she was like, I'm going to get pregnant. She like timed her honeymoon around her ovulation and she got pregnant and she attributed it to the fertility smoothie. Amazing. So she blogged about it. It went viral. Everybody was drinking it. And then I met Anna, my business partner, Anna Rawson. She hired me as her doula. And we were like, completely instant besties. And her husband's like, you two should do a business together. And I was like, well, I have this smoothie idea and I want to make them into powder forms. And she just was like, okay. And the next day we were like off and running.
I love that. That's amazing.
And since then, I think we launched the smoothies soft launched about 2 years ago. And we've had probably it's had to be like around 700 pregnancies.
My gosh, that's so beautiful.
I know. And every time somebody emails us, I'm pregnant, or they move to the pregnancy blend, we see them buying the pregnancy blend. We like would high five each other. And it's so, yeah.
That's incredible. I'm just thinking about the fact that you work with clients from like fertility all the way through pregnancy, through birth, through postpartum. As someone who needed fertility treatments to get pregnant, like that just makes me teary to think I should have just done the smoothie. Maybe I should have started with the smoothie. Is there a stage when you work with clients that you love the best? Is there, something you feel most connection to, or is it really the whole journey?
I like the pregnancy and the birth, but like I have a client right now I worked with for about 6 months before she conceived. And now she's pregnant. I think she's 3 months pregnant. And she's like, we're working together and I'm going to be at the birth. And it's those ones that I've like taken through fertility. And it's just like when the baby comes out and it's like that, the grand finale.
Yeah.
It's like, your heart just explodes because you've seen everything they've been through to get to that point. But I feel like I would say my greatest gifts lie in pregnancy and birth.
So you've shared some great advice for women who are preparing for birth and setting intentions, finding their care team. Is there any other wisdom that you'd like to share for expecting parents as they're kind of looking ahead to the months ahead as to birth?
Education is key. You know, I have my 12-week Mindful Mom to Be virtual group coaching program. I launch it every 3 months. So it's every quarter.
Oh, great. And that can be virtual too, or
virtual.
Is that okay? Perfect.
Yeah.
I do feel like that is, especially with pregnancy and postpartum, like the fact that there's so many things that are virtual now, and maybe you did it before COVID too, but that is a big gift because it can be really hard to get to these things in person. And so to have it be able to come to you makes it so much more accessible.
So much better. I'm launching a community. It's called the Mama Portal too, which will be up soon. It's going to be really inexpensive to join per month. And my intention behind doing it is to have thousands of women come in and connect, because I watched the way these women in my groups, each group has like 30 to 50 women. They are so supportive and connected. It like my heart just, it's women need it more than ever. And so it's going to be a platform for education, connection, a lot of support, a lot of community, just a place that women can go, I'll gift you a membership.
Oh, thank you. This sounds incredible.
Because it's for moms of all ages too, of all stages and ages too.
Oh, wonderful. Wonderful. Yeah. Thank you. That's so exciting. And to have you behind it is so great with all of your experience and knowing what, you know, women need and what connections and how to cultivate that. So that's incredible.
There's going to be, it's me and my tribe of experts. So I'm going to have so many experts coming on, from pediatricians. You know, there'll be postpartum circles and, you know, pop-up infant massage classes, and just maybe a lot of fun things in there, and just a lot of community. Amazing. Virtually, people can do from anywhere in the world.
That's such a gift. Amazing. Well, Lori, before you go, could you just share where we can find you on social media, online? Where should people go?
I'm at LoriBregman.com. LoriBregman.com. My Instagram is at @lbreggy, and also Seedlyfe.com. We're also on Amazon. It's SEEDLYFE on Instagram at Seedlyfe_. And that's where you can find me.
Awesome.
And also offering all your people 15% off on all Seedlyfe. So you can just use code Seedlyfe15 for a discount.
Amazing. I'm definitely so excited to try it. Thank you so much. Yeah. And thank you so much for being here and for the work you're doing. It's truly incredible. So it was so great to get to chat.
Yeah. Thanks for having me.
Today We Tried is brought to you by Colugo, a baby gear brand founded by parents for parents. I'm your host, Christy, and our producer is Mike Pilak. Stay tuned for more, and in the meantime, remember, you got this, and we've got you.